The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I was in my home office, reviewing investment portfolios for my clients, when I heard my wife answer the door. "Can I help you?" Sarah's voice carried a polite but confused tone. "We're here to see our daughter, Rebecca Lawson." I froze. That voice? I hadn't heard it in 24 years, but I'd recognize it anywhere. My mother's voice, with that specific edge of entitlement that suggested the world owed her something. "I think you have the wrong house," Sarah said. Rebecca's maiden name was Chen, not... Chen was her father's name. I'm her mother. Now please get her. This is urgent. I walked to the front door, my heart pounding. Standing on my doorstep, looking older and harder than I remembered, were Linda and Frank Lawson, my mother and stepfather, the people who'd thrown me out of their house 24 years ago with a garbage bag full of clothes and told me, "Good riddance." "Hello, Mother," I said coldly. Her face brightened with false warmth. "Rebecca, oh sweetheart, look at you, and this beautiful house. We knew you'd do well for yourself." "What do you want?" The smile faltered. "Can we come in? We need to talk to you about something important, family business." I looked at Sarah. She raised an eyebrow, leaving the decision to me. After a long moment, I stepped aside. "You have 10 minutes. Because I wanted to hear this. I wanted to hear what could possibly make them show up after 24 years of silence. They sat in my living room, looking uncomfortable on my expensive furniture, and told me they needed $80,000. I laughed, not politely, but the kind of laugh that comes when something is so absurd it breaks through disbelief. "You threw me out when I was 16 years old," I said. "You told me I was worthless, that I'd end up pregnant and on welfare, that I was a burden you were glad to be rid of. And now you want $80,000? Rebecca, please, get out of my house. If you just listen." "No, you listen." I stood up, and something in my face made them both shrink back. "I'm going to tell you a story. The story of what happened to that 16-year-old girl you threw away. And then you're going to leave and never contact me again." My name is Rebecca Chen Lawson, and when I was 16 years old, my mother decided I wasn't worth keeping. Let me back up. My father, David Chen, died when I was 8, cancer. My mother remarried a year later to Frank Lawson, a man who made it clear from day one that I was baggage that came with the deal. Frank had 2 biological sons from a previous marriage, Brandon and Kyle, both older than me. They got new cars for their 16th birthdays. They got college funds. They got everything. I got criticism and indifference. Why can't you be more like Brandon? He's going to college for business. He's going to be successful. Kyle got another scholarship offer. Maybe if you applied yourself more, Rebecca, you'd have opportunities too. I did apply myself. I had a 3.8 GPA. I was on the debate team. I worked part-time at a grocery store to save for college because I knew they wouldn't help me pay. But nothing I did was ever good enough. When I was 16, I made the mistake of dating someone Frank and my mother didn't approve of. Marcus was black. That was his crime. "You're not dating that boy," Frank said flatly. "I'm not asking permission." The slap came out of nowhere. Frank had never hit me before. My mother stood behind him, silent. "You'll do what you're told in my house." I touched my burning cheek. "This isn't your house. My dad bought this house. His name is still on the deed." Wrong thing to say. My mother's face went cold. "Your dad is dead, Rebecca. He's been dead for 8 years. This is Frank's house now, our house, and you're a guest, one who's about to wear out her welcome." I broke up with Marcus, not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid. Afraid of more slaps, more coldness, more evidence that I was unwanted. 2 months later, I accidentally, on purpose, forgot to fold the laundry. Teenage rebellion, stupid and small. Frank exploded, screaming about disrespect, about being ungrateful, about how I was just like my failure of a father. "Don't you talk about my dad. Your dad was a weak man who left your mother with nothing. He died of cancer and left you as a burden we've had to carry ever since." My mother just stood there, saying nothing, agreeing with her silence. That night, Frank and my mother came into my room with garbage bags. "Pack your things," Frank said. "You're leaving." "What?" "You're 16, old enough to work, old enough to figure things out. We're done supporting someone who shows us no respect." "Mom," I looked at my mother, desperate. "Mom, please." "You heard Frank. Pack your things. You have an hour." I packed in a daze. Clothes, photos of my dad, the few things that mattered. My mother watched from the doorway, arms crossed. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, crying now. "That's not our problem anymore," Frank said. "Maybe you'll learn some responsibility." "Good riddance," my mother added as I walked down the stairs with my garbage bag of belongings. They locked the door behind me. I stood on the sidewalk in front of my dad's house, my house, the one he'd bought for us, and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I started walking. I slept in a shelter that night. The counselor there was kind, helped me understand my options. I could try to go into foster care, but at 16, I'd likely just be placed in a group home until 18. Or I could emancipate and work full-time. I chose emancipation. I worked 3 jobs: morning shift at a diner, afternoon shift at the grocery store, night shifts at a gas station. I slept 4 hours a night. I finished high school online. I saved every penny. The shelter let me stay for 3 months while I got on my feet. Then I moved into a room in a run-down house with 5 other tenants, paying $300 a month for a space barely big enough for a twin bed. I was so tired all the time, so lonely, so angry. But I was also determined to prove I wasn't worthless, that I could make it without them. I graduated high school with my 3.8 GPA still intact. I applied to community college and got in with a partial scholarship. I kept working, taking classes part-time, sleeping less than ever. At 19, I got a job as a bank teller. It paid better, had benefits, let me cut down to 2 jobs. I took night classes in finance and economics. I learned everything I could about money, how to make it, grow it, protect it. At 22, I passed my Series 7 exam and became a licensed financial advisor. At 24, I opened my own practice. At 28, I was managing $50 million in client assets.
I met Sarah when I was 30. She was a client first, then a friend, then the love of my life. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony with the family I'd built. Friends who'd become sisters, mentors who'd become parents, chosen people who'd proven that family isn't about blood. I never contacted my mother, never reached out. The girl they threw away had grown into a woman who didn't need them. I thought that chapter was closed forever. Then they showed up at my door. "We need $80,000, Frank said, sitting in my living room 24 years later. "Your mother has medical bills, cancer treatments, and we're behind on the house payments." "The house," I said slowly. "My father's house, the one you claimed as yours." "Rebecca, please, your mother is sick." "How sick?" My mother looked uncomfortable. "Stage 2 breast cancer. Treatable, but the treatments are expensive. Insurance doesn't cover everything." "And the house?" "We refinanced a few years ago. Times were tough. Now we're behind. They're going to foreclose if we don't catch up." I looked at them. These people who'd thrown me out, who'd told me good riddance, who'd never once in 24 years reached out to see if I was alive or dead. "How did you find me?" I asked. "Brandon saw an article about you in a business magazine, about your firm. We tried calling, but your office said you don't take calls from people not on your client list, so we came here." "Did Brandon help you? Or Kyle?" They looked at each other. Frank cleared his throat.
The boys have their own families, their own expenses. But they have jobs, right? Brandon's big, successful business career, Kyle's scholarships. Silence. Let me guess, I said. Brandon's business failed. Kyle never finished college. They can't help you, so you came to the daughter you threw away. Rebecca, we made mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed. You threw a 16-year-old child out of her home. You called her worthless. You told her good riddance. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. We're sorry, my mother said, but her voice was flat. We were young. We didn't know how to handle things. You were 40 years old. I was a child. Are you going to help us or not? Frank demanded, his old anger surfacing. We're family. No, I said. We're not. You stopped being my family when you locked that door behind me. I don't owe you anything. Your mother is sick. Then she should ask her sons for help, or her husband, the man who's been supporting her all these years. Oh wait, you've just been living off the house my father bought, haven't you? My mother's face hardened. That house is half mine. Is it? Is your name on the deed? The silence answered. My father bought that house before he married you. Community property laws didn't apply. When he died, the house should have gone to me, his only biological child. But I was 8, so you got to live there as the surviving spouse. You were supposed to hold it in trust for me. You have no proof. I have my father's will. I requested a copy when I was 18. He left everything to me to be held in trust until I turned 21. You were supposed to give me that house. Frank stood up. You walked away. You left. That house is ours. I didn't walk away. You threw me out. And if we want to talk about legal rights, we can. I have excellent lawyers. We can discuss how you misappropriated my inheritance, how you probably refinanced my house without legal authority, how you... What do you want? My mother interrupted. Money? Is that it? You want us to beg? I looked at her, this woman who'd given birth to me but never mothered me, who chose a man over her own daughter, who stood silent while I was abused and then discarded. I don't want anything from you, I said. I just want you to understand something. That girl you threw away, she didn't end up pregnant and on welfare. She ended up successful, wealthy, happy, with a family that actually loves her, without you. So you're just going to let us lose everything? I didn't lose everything. You threw it away. There's a difference. Sarah called the police after they refused to leave. They were escorted off my property, my mother crying about ungrateful children, Frank threatening lawsuits he'd never file. I sat in my office afterward, shaking. Are you okay? Sarah asked, holding my hand. I don't know. Part of me wants to feel guilty. She's sick. They're losing the house, and I just refused. You don't owe them anything, Becca. I know, but she's still my mother. No, Sarah said firmly. A mother doesn't throw her child away. She's the woman who gave birth to you. That's biology. She stopped being your mother when she chose him over you. She was right, but it still hurt. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer. My mother and Frank had indeed tried to sue me for financial support and rightful inheritance. The case was laughed out of court. But the call also revealed something interesting. The house was being foreclosed. My lawyer suggested I could buy it at auction if I wanted. Why would I want that house? I asked. Because it was your father's house. Because they took it from you. Because you could take it back. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Let's buy it. I bought my father's house at foreclosure auction for $240,000. Market value was $350,000, but foreclosures go cheap. My mother and Frank had to move out within 30 days. I wasn't there for the eviction, but my lawyer was. He said they were furious, screaming about injustice and family betrayal. I hired contractors to renovate, strip away everything Frank had added, everything that made it his. I found old photos of the house when my father was alive and restored it to look exactly like it did then. When the renovation was done, I didn't move in. I didn't need to. I had my own beautiful home with Sarah. Instead, I turned it into transitional housing, a place for kids aging out of foster care or escaping bad family situations, kids who needed a safe place to land while they figured out their next steps. I called it David Chen House, after my father. The first resident was a 16-year-old girl named Maria, who'd been kicked out for being gay. When she walked in and saw her room, clean, furnished, safe, she cried. "You're going to be okay," I told her, hugging her while she sobbed. "This doesn't define you. You're going to make it." "How do you know?" she asked. "Because I was you, and I made it, and I'm going to help make sure you do too." I never heard from my mother or Frank again. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they moved to Florida, that Frank worked part-time at a hardware store, that my mother survived her cancer, but they were broke. I felt no satisfaction in that, no joy in their struggle, just nothing. Brandon reached out once, sent me a Facebook message saying he was sorry for how they treated me, that he'd been young and didn't understand, that he wished he'd done more. I wrote back, "I appreciate the apology, but I don't need anything from you. Take care of yourself." I meant it. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need closure. I'd built my own closure over 24 years. Sarah and I have been married for 8 years now. We have a son, James, named after my father's middle name. He's 3 years old and will never know what it's like to be unwanted. My firm manages $400 million in client assets. I've won awards, made lists of top financial advisors, built something real and lasting.
But the thing I'm proudest of? David Chen House has helped 43 kids in the 5 years since I opened it. 43 kids who had nowhere to go, who thought they were worthless, who needed someone to believe in them. I gave them what my parents never gave me, a chance. At 40 years old, I'm exactly who 16-year-old Rebecca needed me to be. Someone strong enough to survive, successful enough to prove them wrong, and kind enough to help others who are where she was. My parents showed up needing $80,000. I said no. Not because I couldn't afford it. I could have written that check without even noticing the money gone. I said no because some debts can never be paid. Some wounds don't heal with money. Some relationships can't be bought back. They threw away a daughter. I built a life, and that life is worth infinitely more than $80,000 or any amount they could ever ask for. If you've ever been rejected by family and built your own success anyway, share your story below and subscribe for more stories about turning pain into purpose and rejection into resilience.